Hi to everybody. Some people that I mainly hear on the phone bridge. It's so nice to see you, and some people I've seen on Zoom before. My name is Susan. I'm a compulsive overeater, and I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the Gray Sheet. Call them into my absolutely wonderful sponsor. I don't eat in between those meals no matter what, and I'm very, very grateful to be abstinent. My current abstinence date is February 10 of 2022, but fortunately I've been weighing and measuring from the Gray Sheet since January of 2010. My food story is a long one, starting when I was a preschooler. Um, I'll try not to belabor that, but it was a huge thing in my life because it pretty much ran my life from the time I was maybe 3 until I blessedly found Gray Sheet at the age of 55. That's a lot of years of compulsive overeating with a couple of gaps where I found something that worked temporarily, but just couldn't stick to whatever it was. And I guess one of the things that I found is anything works. Any of the myriad ways to lose weight works if what you're after is weight loss, but it's what the inability to sustain it for me. I could not sustain it. And so in my entire life, I had exactly before Gray Sheet, I had exactly two normal weight times. And that's all. The rest of the time I was large numbers. My top weight was 251, something like that. And I have some pictures because I really needed to see pictures when I came into Gray Sheet. I needed to believe that this was possible because everybody looked so gorgeous. I look around here, everybody's gorgeous. So, like, it's hard as a very large person to believe that this thing works. But I'm old school, so these are just in an album. But that's me with my husband, and I'll just do a couple select me with one of my daughters. So she's now 41. So you get how old I was there. Um, that's yet with some kids and friends sitting there, just rolls and rolls and rolls. This is probably representative. That's with my second daughter. So she's now 35. But I I hated clothing. My mother was a seamstress and she hated me being overweight. Like she was very frank about it and just let me know what a disappointment I was. So of course that didn't help. I cannot blame my eating on her. I can just say that that didn't help. And I have 4 daughters, 4 adult daughters, and uh, interestingly, one of them, I believe, has our disease. Uh, the second one didn't used to, but now seems to be developing it. The third one figured out herself early on, before I did, that she had a problem with food. She asked to go to a diet doctor, who very luckily there was a children's program here in Pittsburgh, and they taught her the red, green, yellow foods thing. And she just did it herself. And she has never been overweight since then. And, so it's like a miracle. I don't know why. And the fourth one is adopted. So she also has food issues, but she's like a compulsive exerciser and does all of those kinds of things. Why I mention that is that they all grew up in a house where there was a lot of food and they reacted differently, to it. But I wanted it for me. Even if I said I was buying it for them or for my husband, it was always for me. And one funny example of that is that, on the Jewish holiday of Passover, you eat this thing that comes in a box that's crunchy. And I would buy like 10 boxes for 8 days. And after I found Gray Sheet, I think I bought less. I think I bought like 5 boxes and 4 were left over at the end of the holiday. So it was clearly me who was eating the 10 boxes. And I just share that because I needed to hear that people did bags and boxes, and that was me. I took things out of other people's offices. I, um, I mean, it was on their desk and they would say, "Oh, yes, anybody can come in anytime and take it." But I only wanted to take it when they weren't in their office because I didn't want them to actually see me taking anything. I got in trouble at work. I worked as a physician assistant. I worked in surgery, and I got in trouble because I stole uh, meal chits that the residents were allowed to have meal chits, so they got their meals for free, and we were not. And I thought that was unfair because I had to be in the hospital all night just like they did. But like a compulsive overeater lies and rationalizes. I mean, I had a rationale for everything that I did. And that's what got me in trouble. My two day ones were rationalizations in my head of like, well, this is fair because of this. Like, this rule doesn't apply to me because I'm not in the beverage program. So I don't need that rule, really stupid stuff. Um, but despite being a reasonably intelligent person in the rest of my life, when it came to food, I was just like completely non-functional, dysfunctional, all of those things. So I don't want to prolong the food because the recovery is important. I went to OA, I went to Weight Watchers first when I was 13 and I got down to goal weight. And I just thought I was the cat's meow and that now I could eat normally. And that didn't work at all. So all that weight came back on. I probably joined Weight Watchers, I don't know, 15 times, 20 times over the course of my life, back when you had a little book and a stamp and all that stuff. I can't tell you how many hundreds or thousands of dollars Weight Watchers had from me. And after I got married, uh, and I went, actually, I think it was before my wedding. But my husband, I would lie to him and tell him I had migraines rather than go to the meeting and have gained weight. So that's, again, it's just all that kind of crazy, sick behavior around food. Um, but I did when I was 13, that was one of my thin periods, which was very brief. And then when I was 23, I found Overeaters Anonymous. And that was the first time I knew this was a disease. And that was like a revelation that, oh my gosh, I'm not a bad person. I'm not a horrible person. I'm not a weak person. I just have a bad disease. So I lost the weight. I got down to my goal weight. I got married in abstinence. All the food at our wedding, other than the round thing, was abstinent. I didn't have the round thing. Of the 100 guests that were there, 40 were people from OA. It was like really a family for me. And I did great for a couple of years. I did intergroup. I did all, I was like speaking everywhere. And then I took a trip with my husband for 2 months and 10 days to Europe. And that was before cell phones. I didn't know there were meetings in Europe at the time. And I stayed abstinent. I stayed abstinent by writing letters, by committing my food by postcard, by reading letters from GreySheeters that I had, or OA people. And it was the gray sheet. I was doing the gray sheet in OA. I did all of that. When I got home, I found out my sponsor had gone out while I was gone. And just like that, I gave up my abstinence. Like, well, this must not work. My sponsor, who really was my higher power, went out. So this must just not work. And I spent 24 years trying to prove that gray sheet and OA uh, didn't work. So I tried many, many other things. Luckily, I never tried surgery or bulimia. I can't do it. Um, Thankfully, I couldn't do it. Then I went back to OA in 2000, and by that time they had gotten rid of the gray sheet. I didn't know there was gray sheet, and I lost about 40 of the many pounds I needed to lose. I And then I started like 3 meals a day with nothing in between. I realized you could push 3 meals bigger and bigger. My 3 meals had no boundaries. And so I was still calling myself abstinent. Most of the people in my OA group were overweight. Everybody called themselves abstinent, and most people were overweight. So I realized that wasn't working. I left that. And then in 2010, a former sponsor called me up and said, "Oh, thank you so much. I have 5 left." So, former sponsor called me up, said that she was starting a gray sheet meeting in her house. Had complete amnesia. I never thought I'd heard the words gray sheet before. And when I asked her what is that, and she told me, I was like, well, I could never do that. Like I couldn't even imagine at that point in my life. I was 55, couldn't imagine doing that. She called me again a second time and said, I really think you would like this. Please come. So I did, and I was struck abstinent. It was just like the bolts of lightning and oh my God, I'm going to do this. And she gave me a scale. She taught me how to weigh and measure. She knew that I traveled a lot for work. She took me out to a restaurant the first week I was abstinent and just said, here's what you do. You do this. You order this way. You tell people what you need. You tip well. Just like whatever. And then I knew she weighed and measured. She had a very public job. She weighed and measured at head tables at banquets. She weighed and measured, in lots of public places. And that gave me the courage to do it. So I too have weighed and measured at a head table at a banquet in front of the president of the university where I worked. I will weigh and measure anywhere, the floor of a train, the floor of an airport, you name it, I have weighed and measured there. During COVID, on the floor of my car with my butt sticking out in the rain because they wouldn't let you in the place to weigh and measure your food. And I've never regretted it. I've never regretted waking up abstinent. I've never regretted the foods I can't eat. Once in a while, do I have a thought? Yeah, once in a while, I'm not going to lie and say I never have a thought. But I'm so far from the action of fulfilling on that thought because there's always that moment of grace. Like you have a thought, but you have a moment before picking up. Before Gray Sheet, and its boundaries, its very strict boundaries. I didn't know that once I had the thought, I didn't have to follow up on it. Like I literally thought, I'm thinking of that food, I must have it, and I must put it in my mouth. I just didn't know that there was that period. So now I really focus on that period. If I'm having a thought or anything weird, I call my sponsor, I call another gray sheeter. I give service when asked. I give service when not asked, um, because I know that my life is better. I'm a better person. And even my daughters who are practicing what I would consider this addiction are so respectful of how I eat. They are my champions, and they know that I've had some very serious health problems over the last year and a half. I had both my knees replaced, and then I have a condition called atrial fibrillation where your heart is beating weirdly, and I've had that for some years, and it was getting worse and worse till I went into congestive heart failure, and I had two procedures that didn't work, and then I had another procedure that worked, and I'm back to normal heart function now. And like my heart strength, which they measure through an echocardiogram, is as good as it was before I developed the heart problems. So this is a miracle program. Thank you. 1 minute. All I can say is I love to talk about travel. I know you're from all over the place. I love to travel and I do it a lot and I weigh and measure everywhere and I take backup and I make calls and I do the things that we do. And I just thank you for the opportunity to share my experience, strength, and hope, and know that I would be available to any of you. I will put my phone number in the chat and call me anytime I have WhatsApp if you're out of area. And really, all my love and respect to all of you who do what we do. It is not easy, but it is so rewarding. And I'll pass. Thank you.